The New York Jets just lost to the New England Patriots 10-3 in a game that didn't even break 6 total points until the end of the fourth quarter. So, how is it possible for the Jets, who started off so hot and even managed to beat the Buffalo Bills, to fall all the way down to scoring just about nothing? It was an ugly game, one that certainly didn't strike fear in the hearts of anyone who has the Jets as an opponent later in the year, and ultimately is very important for the rest of the NFL, because the Jets are in trouble. Looking at the film, it kind of suggested exactly what the worries were. The defense was fantastic. They deserve no criticism for what they did, because ultimately no touchdowns were even allowed by their defense. It was only a special teams punt return touchdown that went all the way. So, what could have gone wrong other than the offense and, of course, the special teams? New York's offense just couldn't get anything going, and we're going to look into why and see exactly what the tape said. But that's an extremely important issue when you have an offense that's had so much invested into it. With the first round last year and this year, you really don't have many options as to why you can't succeed, especially with a talented running back room, an offensive line that's on the up and coming, and a wide receiver room that ultimately is fantastic. So let's get into the film and see exactly what is wrong with the Jets and how we can fix it. What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Coker, and I'm your host for today's episode of Today with Tyler. I hope you enjoy. There were some team issues for the Jets as well. Early in the game, the receiver corps saw some drops that made life really difficult, since drops add extra pressure on the developing Zach Wilson that they have under center. The team also truly struggled to get anything going on the ground despite their talent at running back, which was devastating for the progress of the offense entirely. The offensive line wasn't even forming out of a pocket either when they weren't failing at run blocks, since when Wilson was on for the beginning of the game, he was consistently under pressure on dropbacks. Even screens weren't working for the Jets, something that should at least gain a few yards for a struggling offense, because it's pretty much a guaranteed completion. These issues were important, since lacking a run game and having a few miscues at the skill position puts even more pressure on the quarterback, which will bring us to the biggest issue of this Sunday, Zach Wilson himself. Wilson just struggled, and looked just like he did last year when he threw in 4 interceptions against the Patriots as a rookie. His accuracy was shot, and he was shooting things all over the place. After overthrowing a crosser directly into a safety's hands, which luckily wasn't an interception, he severely underthrows, as well as missing behind another route in the deep middle. 2 different crossing action routes, which are typically easy completions, are now difficult. The accuracy was only even further off in the deep area of the field. Wilson misleveraged multiple times, placing balls that allowed defensive backs to get back into the play, instead of letting the wide receiver run into a massive gain. Despite the issues with the line and Wilson's own accuracy, which is extremely important, the Jets staff kept calling these deep, developing concepts, which only led to more losses in offense because Zach Wilson was trying to complete these, but the offensive line couldn't block, and thus he would get sacked, would run around, would try to make something out of nothing, and nothing would ever come out of it. So the Jets haven't looked good, and their offense really seemed to struggle. Part of that, of course, is because Bill Belichick and the Patriots have a very good team going on, so credit does go out to the Patriots for having a good defense, but an offense should never be shut down that hard unless there's a serious talent mismatch, which there wasn't. So 3 things that the Jets can kind of work on to try to revitalize their career. And the first is that they need to hope that their offensive line can get used to starting. They have 3 missing starters who are all on injured reserve, including Elijah Vera Tucker, who some of you might remember from drafts that I did. And then they're missing Mekhi Becton and George Fant, 2 important tackles. So now you're starting 3 out of your 5 completely new offensive linemen. One's including Dwayne Brown, who has been around before I even started watching football as intensely as I do. So the Jets have a new offensive line, and they're kind of looking like it, but hopefully they can get used to starting because they aren't necessarily bad. It's just an unfortunate situation in which they aren't used to starting anymore or don't have the experience to do well. And there's not much that can save them other than hoping that the experience in the games that they're going to have is going to work out. And they're going to figure out what's wrong with the Jets. Then moving on, they also need to continue working on having a run game to lean on. Because if Zach Wilson's showing some issues in his development, you need to be able to give him a run game to be able to rely on. But they just haven't been able to do so. With 3 missing offensive linemen, they do get a little bit of an excuse. But with 2 talented running backs and still a decent offensive line, they need to be able to get something going, especially if they really want to be able to win. Because if you have the lead, you want a ball control offense, not one that relies on Zach Wilson making some crazy off-script plays every single time. And then, of course, they could help their passing game a little bit, just by adding some simple motion and simple concepts that Zach Wilson can't possibly misread. The accuracy issues will be something worked on in practice and throughout games, but helping him with everything else that isn't exactly Zach Wilson related is going to be extremely important. They've already surrounded him with very talented receivers, but now you got to get those receivers open, and whether it's things like rub concepts or easy crossers, doing things that make his job easier, and while they may not be the most extravagant and you may not just be blowing through defenses like how the Chiefs do, it's still an important key to an offense that right now is completely stalling. So maybe tone it back a little bit. Keep it a little bit shorter, run a little bit more screens, and ultimately stop making Zach Wilson hold the ball for so long because you already know he's going to hold it on for too long anyways. By making Zach Wilson's job easier, you're going to make your own job easier. And the Jets still have a chance at 6-4 to be able to move on and keep staying alive in the playoff hopes. I have faith in the Jets. I want them to do well, and it's hard to root really against them. But if they can't work on those 3 things and ultimately revitalize their offense entirely, this could be a very bad sign to come. Because Zach Wilson didn't look good, and neither did the rest of the Jets' offense. If you can get everyone good around Zach Wilson and he still can't succeed, then you can abandon ship and work on somebody else. But if you can't even say that you were good and Zach Wilson wasn't, how can you blame him for any sort of errors? Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.